Hello and welcome to Dell's Gaming, and this is From the Depths, and I am setting myself up on the firing range to be shot at, because yeah, it may be after some of the things I'm going to say in the video, yeah, people have a go, but so end of the year, so happy new year to everybody. And it's been an interesting year for From the Depths, and we've had a lot of interested developments come through, and we're now pushing towards a release date. I think they've said soon in 2020. I think they said the middle of the year. So in the background you should see a ship being built while I just have a bit of a discussion about what's come through, what's ahead, and you know what I feel about From the Depths at the moment. It's all generally it's positive, constructive, you know. It's all going to be a bit of an interesting conversation, and obviously you can leave your comments down below about whatever I said. So in the background I am building the Giuseppe Garibaldi, which was a condottieri cruiser that survived World War II in the Italian Navy, and in the 1950s was rebuilt to be the first missile guided cruiser in Europe, having a Terrier missile system, reworked guns, and it also interestingly had launchers for Polaris missiles. Now they were never delivered, so the Italians created their own Alpha missiles instead, to so it could actually launch a number of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Obviously don't have that in game, but I'm going to have some fun. Anyway, so 2019 has gone, and first of all I want to say that for the community in general in From the Depths, I think is a very good community. Most people take things in their stride and accept changes and go ahead, and I'm appreciative of the comments people leave about my designs. Like recently there was the issue with the guns, which I don't know, just hadn't noticed, but it was all fairly friendly, and I think generally it's good that From the Depths is mainly about building, and people are friendly to help each other, and I think that's a big positive thing for the game, that hopefully going into 2020 we can keep that positivity going and just help each other to make sure that the game develops well, and we get a good user base, because that's obviously going to help long term. So during the year there was quite a few changes on balancing from Drabber, which we'd done the APS, new simple weapons, there's changes to performance and other areas, and generally the missile APS cram changes I've liked. I think they have balanced it nicely. Some people don't like changes happening because it means they've got to reassess and redo their builds, and they've spent a long time on something which they don't want to redo. Me, I'm all about the building, so if you make a change that means I've got to build things again, I'm happy, because to me it's all about building, rebuilding, retesting, and all of those great parts of the game that allows us to build something from scratch and then blow the crap out of it. So if you make changes, that's okay. I mean, it's not hyper competitive. Obviously there's a bit in the tournament, but I'm not a tournament person. I'm more the campaign style. So yeah, I think it's been the changes that have gone through and all the new weapons and other blocks, I think have been a positive thing through the year. There's been a few hiccups along the way and a few little bugs that come in, but that's part of development. I've been doing development of software for private and corporations for many years, so I understand testing, development, and with a small team it is difficult to pick up all of these changes, but you know, that's where hopefully some of what I'm going to say in the next little bit is going to be constructive from what I know from doing commercial and products and having them release and seeing the ups and downs of all of this work. So another great change this year was the UI. So the new UI look, in general I quite like it. It's clean, You can mod it. I think maybe they need to get an artwork person just to maybe change the defaults that most people see, because most people aren't going to bother to change the colours and the fonts and sizes, etc. And I think it's better if you know, for testing purposes you don't, because that way you can see whether things are fitting, etc. But maybe there needs to be a little bit of artwork, maybe change the colours a little bit, but I'm not an artistic person myself, so yeah, I'll leave it. One of the key points though with the UI and game in general really is consistency. It's one of the biggest bugbears that new players find, and you know, it's important in games and software in general, in giving people a consistent look and feel, a consistent way of navigation. So you know, always find exit points roughly the same place. Like an example which a friend of mine came up with, you know, when going through the build menu, which hasn't been redone yet, but when you go into an area, finding the way to come back out, obviously you can press escape sometimes, which takes you all the way out, but to go back a level you have to find the core block which has got the little X on it, and it's not always in the same place. Would be better if you just clicked in the corner, or you know, there would be a consistency there, so people haven't got to search around for it. That's an example. Other ones would be slider bars in the UI. Some you can use the mouse wheel on, and some you can't. Some boxes you can type the numbers in, and some boxes you can't type numbers in. So again, a consistency within the UI is important for people, so they get a common way of editing and navigating around. I think would be of benefit. I'm sure they are working on all of that, so I'm sure point it out and on the bug page, and I'm sure they will be able to look at it and get that nice consistent feel for new players that are coming into the game. So it's a less of a wall and a cliff to climb up to decide to find out how to design ships and etc. So they're not fighting the UI. There's some other games out there where the UI's okay. I mean, as an example, a bad UI, some people don't mind, but KSP's UI is not great. People put up with it, but that doesn't mean that it's a design aim to have a shitty UI. You should have a nice UI, consistent feel, etc. KSP is generally consistent, it's just not laid out very well, as an example on that one. A little bugbear I will say, which is the use of the middle mouse button in certain bits in the game, is again, it's an inconsistency, especially when you talk about the prefab menu. Now I've got to say one thing, I love the idea of the folders in sub-objects and prefabs. Having the folders now, that's rather than just a numbered one, that's brilliant. I love that. Accessing it through the middle mouse, I even get confused now on it, and it's the only real place that uses that functionality. I still think it would be better if they were just buttons or options on the menu. I don't know why that one is like that and it's the only place that uses it. It's personally though, my biggest problem is I sometimes, when I'm away, I use a laptop, hasn't got a middle mouse, and I have to go and find a mouse, plug it in. It's just annoying when I'm using different areas where you haven't got that middle mouse. I'm sure you can remap it, but if you're going to remap it, why not go for the lowest common denominator and just say, well, put it on the menu like everything else? That's a personal bugbear. So that was a little ranty, but hopefully a little bit of constructive. If there is a good reason why that is a middle mouse button, I'm perfectly fine with that. And I'm sure other people would be. Other bit as a constructive consistency thing is logical naming. If you're going to name something in the game in a particular way, make sure it is actually and it's based on a real world example. Make sure it does actually operate in that particular way and functions in that way. Otherwise people will just go, well, that isn't a XYZ. Otherwise, call it a weird name you make up. That way no one can complain when it doesn't work the way you want. You know, you can have a flux comparator or an influx hyperdyne regenerator or something like that, and no one's going to question how it works. You can totally defy physics. But if you have a turbo or a turbine, it must operate as a turbo or a turbine. Otherwise, people who know about them will go, well, that's not a turbo, that's not a turbine, it's working the wrong way. I'm sure people know that, and I don't think that's something that's going to get changed anytime soon, however much I would like it. Fuel engines, as an example, magic fuel engines, turbos and superchargers on that actually are about face. They don't increase fuel efficiency, they increase power at the expense of fuel efficiency. So they're actually the opposite way round. You don't actually get, they actually are less efficient than if you didn't have the turbo on there, but they get more power from that fuel at higher, but at lower revs they don't, as an example. So in general they are still less efficient than not having the turbo. It's just things like that, sort of, as well as a person that works on cars, it just annoys me a little bit. The thing I loved when the steam side, talking about engines, was when they added the prop shafts and everything to steam. I think that was excellent idea, and it was logical. Things worked in the way that people would expect it to work, and it meant that I could start putting designs in that actually had to fulfill having the gearboxes and prop shafts going through, etc. Brilliant. Personally, I would have loved to see the prop shaft and gearboxes from the small steam gearbox and just transplant them into the fuel engine, so you've got exactly the same setup, and just give the crankshaft on the fuel engine a RPM, the same as it has in the steam. Reduce the imagine they're marine diesel, so they're not to go up to 10,000 RPM. They must be just to be around a maximum of say 1,000 RPM, but maybe low, which means they don't need as many of the gearboxes, as an example, or something like that. I'm sure there's a few changes that could be done in that regard to use that and just have them as a low torque version. They're affected more by the weight, but you plug them on there. Love to see that. Don't think it's going to happen. I know they're working on fuel efficiency more so on the engines, and I do know that there is a certain level of the group who don't want to change those engines because they've spent so much time trying to optimize them that to change it is almost like a heresy of some description, in that kill the heretic for touching my fuel engine. I sometimes feel that in the comments you see in the forums, but I could be wrong on that. But it'd be good to see, because again, it means I can rebuild all my ships. Hey, that for me, that's a good thing. That's fun. I've got to come up with new designs and find some new ships to copy and think about. Find this historical ship. Going into 2020, something I am really looking forward to is the new campaign AI and the new campaign system. So from what I understand, it's going to be based around fleets rather than taking over boxes. And this is great because you'll have a consistent fleet that you'll be able to track, and you have to take out that fleet, you can damage it. Hopefully there'll be some sort of rebuild, so if it takes more than one of your fleets to do it, they have to repair damage and use up their resources, etc. Or they might be missing ships, all that type of thing. So you have to wear down a fleet, or lots of things like that. I think would be great. Hopefully a little bit more land would be good in the Netta region, so that we could do a little bit more of the land vehicles in some areas, but still have a big map. I think that would be interesting, having amphibious flying and or ships to go through that side. Again, as I say, that is something I'm looking for. I do have some concerns which I'm sure will be looked into. I mean, one is that if we're moving more towards a fleet orientated system and battle, we need more fleet-based AI options. So being able to create ships which support each other, that do a proper follow the flagship, or stay in formation, or escort these ships, or have some way of creating a more fleet feel. Without that type of functionality, basically every ship has got to do everything, which basically heads towards making just a big ship that does everything, and you haven't got to worry about it running into each other, going aground, or the ships not working together, one of your escort ships just wandering off. You haven't got to worry about that level of control. And I think some people that play the game, they micromanage everything using the E menu top-down view. I prefer, and I think a lot of other people, they just set up the AI in your fleet and then go. And I think that's a reasonable way to expect. Maybe there's one ship they control, but that's about it. Especially if you've created all of these control blocks, etc., to change your AI based on range and all this lovely stuff. The last thing you want to do is have all of those control blocks and then have to manually control it yourself. That's not the way. I'd like to think I'm the admiral, so I just say, right, we're going to have that battle. Right, there's the forces. The forces themselves, that each captain has to control his ship himself. Anyway, that's a potential. Hopefully they can sort something out on that. The other one with the fleets is range, and this is a hangover from, I suppose, the game limitation and the older build of the game, in that we always had a limit of 5,000 meters for the AI. Below 5,000 you don't target anything. The problem that I've seen at the moment is, now it's easy to make a small APS gun, fairly small to medium gun, that can quite happily go out to 10,000 meters. But you can never, you'll never have a. It means, why bother? It means range is now meaningless. You can't outrange an opponent. The opposite end of the scale, it's actually quite difficult to get a medium size cram cannon to go above 1,000 meters. I remember in the Omaha, I was struggling to get it. I can't remember, 650 millimeter gun would only go 1.2, 1.5 kilometers, etc. Whereas the 50 mil or small APS gun I had on it was quite happily doing out to 6,000-7,000 meters. Okay, can go with that. The other problem, though, that is affecting on this distance is speeds. In general, ship speeds are about double reality. In a lot of the ships, like the Condottieri, I get up to 30 meters a second, which is actually about 50 or 60 knots. I think a knot is 1.85. Times it by 1.85 to get the meters per second. Or no, meters per second is 1.85. Yeah, it's 1.85, somewhere around that figure. So a 10 meters a second is actually 18.5 knots as such. Anyway, what does that mean? Well, you add in that vehicle speeds are double what you expected, and that then your distance of guns, etc., is only a quarter. So you start even if you started at 5,000, you're immediately in range. It means closing distances are 8 times what you would expect, and at the moment, if anything, we are slowing down the rate of fire and the damage of guns to make the battles last longer, which I agree with. I agree that the battles should be longer, but that goes hand in hand with engagement distances. Again, what this does is it makes people just want to build one big ship, because it's less to control and just make it easier. Aircraft obviously are slowed down to keep in range, because even with the speeds they are at the moment, getting around 200, it's very easy to go out of range, out of the 5k range very easily. Is there a solution for the range thing? No, I'm just pointing out that I see the range sort of pushes people towards particular design decisions, shall we say, and size of ships, etc. Hey, if that's the way the game is, it isn't a reality game. We are looking at something which is robots on a planet that, you know, doesn't exist, shall we say. So yeah, it can be like this, and we have to build around it. I just think it would be nice to think about what could be done on the range. Could it be that we reduce the range of APS guns so that they now have, it's not as easy to get out to that maximum range, so that there is actually a reason to have a fast ship that can dodge in and out of range of the guns. I think I remember the old cram cannons. I used to love it because to get out to the maximum range you had to build a specialist long range cram cannon ship. Same with APS guns. It wasn't easy to get out to 5k, certainly not accurately, and you had to really build around it and design it. Now just any old gun can go out to 4 or 5k, not a problem. You just plink 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 and that's it. So that was a little bit ranty, so sorry about that one, but it does sort of annoy me. I don't know if there's something that could be done now with the extra efficiency we're getting in the game to be able to push out the range to say 10k instead of 5k as an example. I don't know if that's even feasible. It would be nice to think about. And then in the fleet campaign, the map, it can be a bit bigger, and those fleet engagements could start at say 8 or 9k rather than at the moment it's going to be what, it's 2.5, 3k is the average starting point, I guess, of a battle, unless you try to kite it a little bit. Maybe we can push that up to 8 or 9k. It'd be interesting. Certainly a new dynamic. Again, I don't know if it's even feasible in the game engine. There may be some limitations that prevent that. But yeah, this is just a logical consistency issue that goes through the game and things that I come up with. General though, I'm going to end this with the final bit, in that I really like From the Depths. That's why I'm mostly passionate about it, because I really like it. It's the game that currently I play more than anything else. Maybe not the one I've played most of in total, but it's certainly one that I play more than most others currently. And I just want to see it good. I'd love to see lots of players building ships so that we can communicate and have fun coming up with new ideas. And you know, I obviously recently have got into creating more realistic ships, and I want to continue that through on From the Depths, and also possibly other games. I'm going to start looking at doing recreations in other games as well, just as a theme, etc. If you think that's a good idea, let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, I want to see From the Depths go well, and I really like it. So don't get me wrong, I'm not criticising it, saying it's bad. I'm actually saying it's great, and it could just be better. With, to be honest, what I've come up with, it's not big things, they're just some comments, and just sort of maybe move towards that would be nice. I'm not going to stop playing the game because they don't get changed. I'm not going to rant and rave about it. It's just they're things that would be nice. So that's what I said. I was setting myself up on a shooting range here, because I'm sure some people will take a little bit more umbrage than is intended by myself here. So just take it as constructive and just a mild hint at what would be a good idea for the future. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, leave down comments down below. Leave a rant about me if you wish down in the comments. Don't mind. All criticism is constructive in my view, so that's a positive. For myself going into this year, I'm going to try and do some more videos a little bit more frequently as time allows. My work does still take me away at times, so I will still have to disappear at times as work gets a little hectic, but I'm trying to reduce that and be able to do a few more videos. I am going to get into some other games doing the historical type of reference, generally building games and or games where you manage something historically. For instance, I might do a historical run through, say, KSP, building up and doing historical type of flights as an example, just for giggles. Maybe try to build in prison architecture, historical prisons, and try to run them, etc. Any ideas like that would be good. Also, maybe some 40k stuff as well. I do like my Warhammer. It's I'm always an ex-fantasy Warhammer player, but I do like the 40k environment as well. And I have seen there has been a few people on the forums, they've dropped in words that seem to suggest that they are 40k players as well. So possibly there might be a 40k version coming up soon at some point of From the Depths. It may be on Ashes of the Empire, but use 40k vehicles. Maybe that could be a good one. I have also said for Magnus that I was going to do the his Age of Sail campaign, which I think I will do next after a little bit more bashing in Netto. I think I'll have a go at that and getting back to some of the pre-dreadnought ships and early sailing ships. I think that would be an interesting campaign to do at the beginning of this next year, as it's going through. Maybe in a couple of months' time I'll start going through that side, and we'll be looking at some more simpler ships. That's it for now. Again, give us a thumbs up or not, leave a comment down below whether you think what I'm saying is valid or not. But as always, keep playing the game and just make sure you have fun.